Today we are going to be tier ranking language learning methods. I thought it would be a fun video idea. I made a list of about 20 or 30 different language learning methods that we are going to rank today. So don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And now let's get started. Okay, so before we begin, I'm going to explain the tiers. So we have all-time favorites. So those are the methods that I love, my favorite methods of all time, as the name suggests. Then we have I'd recommend. So these are methods that I love as well, but they're just not my absolute favorites. They don't make my top 5 or my top 10. Then we have has potential. So those are the methods and the resources, because we also have a few resources, I think. Yeah, we'll see. But those are the things that, depending on how you use them, they can be effective. Then we have better than nothing. So those are the methods, the things that, like, if you use them, they probably won't get you far, but again, it's better than nothing. And then we have not for me. So those are the methods that I just don't like, don't personally use, and don't think are that effective. Again, if you love those methods, great, but I don't. Lastly, we have haven't tried yet. So those are the methods that I haven't tried. All right, first up, we have shadowing. Shadowing is going straight into all-time favorites. I feel like in 90% of my videos, you'll hear me talk about shadowing. It's one of my favorite methods, so this is a no-brainer. Then we have language exchanges, but online. I also have language exchanges in person somewhere here. Yeah, here we have language exchange in person. So language exchanges online, this one is a bit hard for me to rank, because if I'm going purely based on my personal preference, it's going straight into not for me. But I feel like for like everyone else, it has potential. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna go with has potential, just because, you know, personally, I don't really like it. I find that those apps that offer language exchanges are not very effective. It's really hard to find someone who actually wants to do a language exchange on those apps. But if you're lucky enough and you find someone who actually wants to do a language exchange, I feel like it has potential. I love the idea of language exchanges, just the format, the online, format, I'm not the biggest fan of, but I feel like for the general public, let's say, it has potential. Then we have flashcards, and they are going straight into not for me. Again, personal preference. I used to use flashcards a lot when I was younger, when I first started learning languages, because I had no idea how to even learn a language, right? And I read in a book that flashcards were really effective, and I saw a lot of people use them. And for me personally, they are just very boring. But now that I think about it, I feel like every single method that's not for me could be also placed in better than nothing, because I mean, if you use flashcards, then yeah, that is better than nothing. So maybe actually let's put it in better than nothing, and I'm just going to delete this tier. Next up, we have traditional textbooks. I know that a lot of people are very against traditional textbooks, especially online, but I actually think I'm going to put this either in I'd recommend or has potential. I feel like traditional textbooks give you very good structure, and depending on how you use them, they can be either very effective or not effective at all. So I'd say, yeah, let's put it in has potential. Then we have intensive reading. So this is just basically reading without stopping. I'm going to put this in I'd recommend. You guys know that I really love reading, but I feel like that's not the case for everyone. Not everyone likes reading. So if you don't read in your native language, I'm not going to force you to read a book in a foreign language, right? In general, it's really, really effective, and I'd recommend. You can learn a lot of new vocab from reading. So yeah, it's great. Grammar exercises. Where do I put this? Because here's the thing. Do I put it in better than nothing? I feel like that's a bit harsh. I personally don't really do that many grammar exercises at all, but I know that they serve a purpose, right? So I'm going to go with has potential. I feel like better than nothing is a bit too harsh for grammar exercises, even though personally I don't really do them that often. But what will go into better than nothing are language apps. Okay, here's the thing. I think language apps can be great if you want to build a habit. If an app becomes your main resource and that's the only thing that you use to learn a language, then that's not going to get you far. I feel like most of them are more like games. They gamify language learning, and you feel like you're doing something, you feel as if you're learning something, but in reality, you're not learning much at all, or you're learning very random vocab and things that you're never going to use in real life. So yeah, I mean, depends on the app because some apps are better than others. But I feel like in general, relying on language apps alone is not going to get you far. Here's my take on language apps, and that's also why you guys never see me recommending any apps or like promoting any apps, because I don't really use them in my personal language learning routine, and I would never recommend something that I don't personally use. So yeah, there you go. Language apps are better than nothing. Next up, we have translation, and translation is going straight into all-time favorites. If you guys watched my video about my 5 all-time favorite language learning methods, then you guys know that I really love translation. I mentioned it in that video. Since I started implementing translation exercises into my language learning routine, I stopped doing grammar exercises, and I don't really need to, you know, sit down with vocab lists and memorize endless vocab lists anymore, because translation replaces that, and it's such a good method. If you guys have never tried it, give it a try. Next, we have group classes. Group classes, I'd recommend. Once you sign up for group classes, you have built-in motivation and built-in accountability, and I feel like it's great, especially at the beginning, or if you are not sure which methods you should use, then group classes are great. They are also great for languages that are a little bit less popular, and when I say less popular, I mean less popular in the language learning community. Maybe there are not that many resources, or it's hard to find them. When I say that a language is less popular, I don't mean that there are like no native speakers, because I've also gotten comments about that in the past. I love group classes personally. I think it's also a great way to meet other people who are learning the same language as you. Then we have extensive reading. This is basically where you choose a chapter of a book or a page or a paragraph and you read it very slowly. You look up different words that you don't know, you underline different things, you take notes. I'd recommend. I don't do it that often, I'm gonna be honest, but if you're into that type of stuff, it's nice. All right, reading aloud, I'd recommend. It's not as effective as shadowing. Then we have memory palace. I've never tried this technique, but I've heard such good things. Next, we have speaking with natives, straight into all-time favorites. Nothing replaces speaking with natives. This is kind of like, you know, similar to language exchange online, because when you do a language exchange online, you're also speaking with natives, but this is more like in real life, not in a language exchange setting, just like, you know, when you're abroad and you, I don't know, go to a store or to a bank or like talk to a random person. Speaking with natives is great. It can be a bit nerve-wracking at the beginning, but it's worth it and it's great. Next, we have listening and reading. Again, straight into all-time favorites. This is very subjective. This is a method that I personally really love and I use it all the time, but I wouldn't say that it's more effective than intensive reading or extensive reading. It just means that I like it more. I use it practically every day, so it only makes sense to put it in all-time favorites. Next, we have language exchanges in person. This time, I'd recommend. Yeah, or should I put it in all-time favorites? I'm a bit conflicted. I love language exchanges. What do I do? Okay, I'm gonna put it in all-time favorites. Then we have one-on-one teachers on platforms like italki or Preply, not sponsored. I'd say I'd recommend, or has potential. I feel like, yeah, I'd recommend. No, I'd recommend. I feel like this is a hard one because I used to be so against one-on-one lessons. I don't know, I was just really like the idea of spending an hour talking to a person that I don't know used to really like terrify me. I thought it would be like super awkward, but a few months ago I started learning Kyrgyz and I decided to go with a one-on-one teacher because it's not a very popular language. I couldn't find any resources online and it's been a wonderful experience so far. I definitely changed my mind about one-on-one teachers and I'd recommend them. If you want structure, if you want accountability, they're great, same as with group classes. If you prefer learning on your own, that's fine too. The only thing that like made me think about putting it in has potential. Make sure that you choose a teacher that matches your learning preferences and then you should be fine. Then we have recording yourself speaking, all-time favorites, or I'd recommend. I feel like this is the method that I recommend the most on my channel, but it's uncomfortable. That's what's making me hesitate because it's not the most pleasant experience recording yourself, but it's super effective. If you don't have the opportunity to talk to an actual native speaker, whether that's in a language exchange setting or in real life, then recording yourself is the next best thing. So yeah, all-time favorites. Role-playing conversations, yeah, I'd recommend. Chunking, love it. Straight into my all-time favorite methods. If you don't know what chunking is, it's basically learning whole phrases instead of words in isolation, which then makes speaking a lot easier because you have ready to use phrases and you don't have to think about the grammar behind them. Laddering, I think I'm gonna put it in I'd recommend. Basically what laddering is learning a new language through a language that you already know. So for example, for me, I speak French and I learn a lot of languages through French. I know that I talked about laddering in my 5 more methods I always use when learning a language, but I don't think I'm going to put it in all-time favorites here. I mean, I use it all the time. It's a method that I use subconsciously. I don't even think about it that much. It's my ranking and I can do whatever I want. So yeah, I'd recommend. Then we have active recall. Active recall is again such a good method. It's basically when you take breaks between studying and you allow your brain to forget a little bit. Then through active recall, when you have to really like make an effort to remember something, that's when your brain remembers it forever. It's amazing. It's not the easiest method. Like when you actually try to remember something, it's not the easiest thing in the world, but that's kind of the point. Then we have mnemonics again. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that I love mnemonics. Then we have immersion. Guys, do I put it in all-time favorites? I feel like oh, I shouldn't be putting everything in all-time favorites, but should I? Next up, we have journaling. I feel like this is one of the methods that I love in theory, but I don't use that often in my own language learning routine. When I actually do it, I love it. The thing is, I don't do it that often. I think I'd recommend. Yeah, it's a good method if you want to practice writing in a very low pressure setting. Input only learning. I'm going to put this in has potential because I feel like it can get you really, really far. But at some point, you need to start implementing other methods. Your listening and reading comprehension are going to be great. You're going to know a lot of vocab, but speaking will still feel very, very hard. I know a lot of people who have learned languages through input only, including myself. When I was learning English, I learned at school, and then at home I learned through input only, so YouTube videos mostly. And don't get me wrong, it was great. By the age of like 14, I was able to understand everything in English without subtitles. But then when I actually had to say something, it was rough. Frequency lists. Should I put them in all-time favorites or I'd recommend? Because I feel like here it really depends on how you use them, because if you take a frequency list with, let's say, 100 most common verbs in a language you're learning, and you sit down and you try to memorize it, then I wouldn't really recommend that. What I usually do is I just keep it on my desk, and anytime I want to practice speaking or writing, I can just look at my list and find the verb I want. I'm going to put it in I'd recommend. When you compare this one to like shadowing or translation or active recall, you know, it's not as amazing. Next, we have comprehensible input. So this is basically when you read something or watch something or listen to something that is a little bit above your current level. A good rule is like 70-ish% should be things you understand, and then the rest should be new, so that it's like you still understand what's going on, you can follow the plot, or like you can understand what people are talking about, but enough stuff is new that you still make progress. And yeah, I think I'm going to put it in all-time favorites. Yeah, I love comprehensible input. Talking to AI. I'm torn between has potential and better than nothing. The thing with AI is it's not always accurate, and it really depends on which AI you're talking to. I personally don't really use this method in my language learning routine. I feel like nowadays, when you have access to so many language exchanges online and one-on-one teachers and language exchanges in person, I mean, I see the potential, but no, I don't think so. Not the biggest fan. I think I'm gonna put it in better than nothing. Or is that too harsh? Should we do has potential? Yeah, okay. Let's go with has potential, because I can kind of see why it can work for some people. Because when you talk to AI, no one's going to judge you, and I guess it could be a really good starting point. Won't replace human interaction. Next up, we have vocabulary lists. To be honest, I have no idea where to put this one. It really depends if you're learning vocab that's actually relevant to your life, or if you're just learning random vocab for the sake of learning. I think I'm gonna go with has potential. Lastly, we have safe scripts. So this is kind of similar to role-playing conversations. It's kind of the same thing, so I feel like I should put it in I'd recommend. I don't think it's going to make my all-time favorites list, but I'd recommend. It's a very good method. All right, so that's my final ranking. I don't know, maybe I just made a list of my favorite methods because I feel like, yeah, our biggest tiers are all-time favorites and I'd recommend. A few in has potential, two in better than nothing, and then one I haven't tried yet. You know, language learning is not one size fits all, so I can see how certain methods that I'm not very fond of could work for other people. Let me know in the comments what your favorite language learning methods are. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.